You're watching Sky News. A reminder of our top stories tonight. Michael Gove has claimed that he chose to move jobs to Chief Whip in a major cabinet reshuffle. Several senior male Conservatives have been replaced by up-and-coming female ministers. At least 19 people have been killed and 120 others hurt after a rush-hour underground train packed with commuters derailed in Moscow. And an Israeli civilian has been killed by a rocket fired from the Gaza Strip. It's the first Israeli fatality in more than a week of fighting with Hamas militants. More than 190 Palestinians have died so far. Well, we're going to talk more about that reshuffle and further detail coming through about the Cabinet Minister, now a former Cabinet Minister, Andrew Lansley, who's announced he will step down from Parliament in 2015. He hopes to get what he said is an international public service role. Some discussion or debate as to what that might mean. The logical thing would have been that he was lobbying to be, or had already been tipped that he was going to be the next European Commissioner. But that job has gone to the Leader of the Lords, or former Leader of the Lords, Lord Hill. He's to be the new Euro Commissioner, so a little bit bemusement of what Mr Lansley has in mind, but nevertheless he's going to stand down as an MP at the May 2015 election. And it's all about that election in a sense that the changes that the Prime Minister has made is to prepare his party for that contest. But will the new mix of names be able to bite into Labour's poll lead? Our political correspondent Anushka Asthana reports.
Feels good.
It might look like fun and games, but these marketing managers are hard at work. They are throwing themselves into a team-building session away from the office. The type of day trip that is on the up in the world of business. Because chief executives believe this and this can boost team performance. Now the country's team leader, David Cameron, has pulled together the cabinet that he will take into the next general election. One expert in teams and leadership told Sky News that the Prime Minister's decision to change the gender balance was the right one.
Having more women in the cabinet is going to help Cameron enormously. I think they're much more easily disposed to cooperate. They're much less likely to compete. That's probably what did for Michael Gove. I think that he was someone who was on a mission. He had a very clear idea of what he wanted to do, and then when people got in his way, he confronted them.
This reshuffle is actually less about Downing Street and more about another Westminster building. This one, Conservative campaign headquarters. We're 4 years into a 5-year electoral cycle. Most of the policy making is done. David Cameron has picked a team that he thinks can help him to secure a majority.
The Prime Minister has been careful to pick communicators such as Esther McVeigh, Michael Fallon and Nicky Morgan. State school educated Sajid Javid and Elizabeth Truss will be seen as bringing a different perspective into the cabinet, and he has maintained respected leadership figure William Hague in a key election position.
This is going to be the tightest general election for a generation probably, and I think the Tories are looking at the Labour Party, seeing personality and communication as a key weakness of both Miliband and his wider team, and it's very clear that that's the big area that they've sought to beef up today.
David Cameron could be rejoicing next May if his new team members perform. If they don't, he might fall flat on his face. Anushka Asthana, Sky News.
Well, what difference, if any, will the replacement of Michael Gove with Nicky Morgan make to education policy? And how should the change be viewed? With us to discuss this is Zehra Zaidi, who is a Conservative and a diversity campaigner. And from our Westminster studio this evening, we're joined by Alistair Smith, a teacher and National Secretary of the Anti-Academies Alliance. Sarah, let's start with you. Is this change a little bit more than pre-election cosmetics?
To some extent, this is a very astute move by the Prime Minister. He's got his cabinet on an election footing, and Gove as well as Hague will be crucial in terms of ramming up the election machine. But in a way, Gove might feel that it was his time to move on. I believe he was here earlier talking about the fact that he chose to move.
Well, that's what he says.
Well, look, Nicky Morgan is a fantastic MP. She's handled every brief she's been given with aplomb. Admittedly, you know, this is a new brief for her. She's going to have to hit the ground running. There might be challenges ahead, but whatever she's done in Parliament thus far, she's handled incredibly well. She's proven herself to be very diplomatic, a safe pair of hands, and not afraid to speak her mind. So it's good news.
The accusation hangs in the air, though. It's tokenistic, and if he really meant it, that these were really talented individuals, almost irrespective of their sex, who he wanted in his government, then why only give them 12 months to make a difference, to make an impact? Because effectively, you know, they're on holiday for 3 months. Then it's the conference season. Then they've got about 3-4 months before the whole country goes into election campaign footing. There's not much time to make an impact, is there?
I see what you're saying, but actually, in effect, Nicky Morgan is very capable. We didn't ask whether the new Secretary of State for Defence was a tokenistic appointment to placate the right of...
They've only got a few months to all the new recruits.
Look, Michael Gove will probably have felt that in his time as Education Secretary, he achieved the flagship policy of transforming education in this country. Now it's time to implement it, and I think Nicky Morgan brings a different approach. She's far more diplomatic. You could say it's in the nick of time because along with her you've got Nick Gibb and you've also got Nick Bowles joining her. And in terms of policy, I think you'll find that Nick Gibb will continue a lot of the good work that Michael Gove has done.
Right.
But Nicky Morgan has a chance now to work with the teaching establishment to make sure that the reform, you know, we work together to ensure that education really does help raise educational standards for all.
OK, let's bring in Alistair Smithers-Man. The implication that Sarah seems to be suggesting, Alistair, is that they needed someone a bit more emollient in the education department.
Well, it's absolutely right. Michael Gove was sacked because he is the most unpopular Secretary of State for Education in living memory. Only last week, 1.5 million teachers and public sector workers took strike action, and David Cameron made a calculated decision to get rid of a liability. And all this nonsense about Gove having transformed education, he has undermined an excellent education system, has set the profession against the government, and Cameron is trying to scrabble around for a solution to an electoral problem.
Well, hang on, he's really, to be fair, he's set part of the profession against the government. The turnout was not unanimous.
Well, the vast part of the teaching profession is against Gove's reforms. Look at all the opinion polls. You won't find an opinion poll anywhere that supports Gove's reforms. And Mr Gove has been very forthright in his criticism of teachers, saying that the teachers who went on strike were the bad teachers. But actually what we've seen today is that the man who's been sacked is Mr Gove. And he's forced down performance-related pay on us. Well, he's got his performance-related pay, which is the sack. And that's why teachers all over the country will be celebrating tonight.
Zehra Zaidi, it does seem that the move to Chief Whip and to be head of TV, that's how it's being spun, encouraged, I think, by Downing Street to believe that is his prime job. That's an interesting job to have when you put PR ahead of kids' education.
Not at all. I think we're forgetting the good job that Nicky Morgan can do. She has shown in every brief that she's handled that she can hit the ground running. That's going to be very important. She's got some serious issues to deal with. We've already talked about.
Well, she's got the Teachers in Rebellion for a start.
The teachers' unions, as well as, you know, we saw today the Trojan horse issue come up again.
Yeah.
She has shown that she can hit the ground running and do it very well. But she's got a different style. She's conciliatory. She listens, and I would say to the teaching establishment that there's an opportunity here to work with the new Secretary of State.
Alistair Smith?
We would love to listen. If she's prepared to listen, we've got a long list of things she could do immediately, some important things, get rid of performance-related pay, scrap the phonics test, all sorts of things that she could do, and we'll be interested to see if she is prepared to listen. But it is an absolute fantasy of the Westminster bubble that these reforms are popular and they've been successful. The education system is in crisis. We are short of school places, we are short of teachers, and Gove has paid the price for that. And this government should be spending time, rather than trying to win the next election, actually trying to improve the lot of our children. And what sickens me when I hear the other colleagues speaking, is that this is just some sort of political game that you're playing to win an election rather than trying to meet the needs of our children.
Okay,
well, that's what it sounds like.
Brief, a last word to Zehra.
It's not a political game. Look, this is about trying to ensure that the right people are in post. Nicky Morgan is a fabulous appointment. She's got a great handle on policy. There's a chance now to implement the reforms in a way that works with teachers. And she has shown in everything she's done that she's prepared to listen. The opportunity is there to work with the new Secretary of State. And I would say to my colleague to take it up.
OK, we'll see what her conversation goes. Maybe we'll invite you back. But Zehra Zaidi and Alistair Smith, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.